Are you ready to create professional development that doesn't just check the boxes, but truly empowers teachers to thrive? Let's face it, traditional PD often feels like a chore. It's a one-size-fits-all workshop that leaves teachers uninspired and unsure of how to implement what they've learned. But what if you could flip that script? Today, I'm going to be diving into how a standards-based approach to professional development, just like the standards-based learning transforms students, how it can revolutionize the way that your teachers are supported by combining powerful frameworks like Teach Like a Champion, Get Better Faster, and Building Thinking Classrooms. You can discover how to create professional learning that's practical, engaging, and immediately applicable. If you're an aspiring school leader, a school leader who's new to your role, a coach, or anything else in leadership who's tired of cookie-cutter solutions and ready to inspire real growth in your classrooms, then this episode is for you. Stick around for actionable strategies that your teachers will actually thank you for, because they deserve PD that works, and so do their students. Hi, friend. Are you ready to move into a leadership position? Do you have interests and ambitions that you want to pursue, but feel like you don't know how to take that next step? Maybe you want to start your own coaching or consulting agency. I'm Mel, and I help educators define their career path through correct mindset, knowing your options, and getting prepared for your career transition. I will show you how to level up your leadership skills, share your expertise in a new way, create impact on a larger scale, and put your leadership in motion. As an educator for over 20 years, I started to feel underused and like I had more to give. I knew when the time had come for me to leave the classroom and affect change on a larger level. Now, I'm ready to help you determine where your talents and skills mesh with your passions and interests, put your leadership in motion, and move into that next phase of your educational career journey. Let me help you define your career path by having the right mindset, knowing your options, and getting prepared for that next leadership position. So power up and put your leadership in motion. Welcome back, Empowered Educators. I'm your host, Dr. Mel Vandevoort. You might have noticed that I missed last week's episode. I was in the throes of packing and moving, and with the holiday, I just could not get an episode out. I apologize for that, and I hope you have a little bit of grace and forgiveness, and I hope today's episode makes up for that. But while I was driving back and forth from the country where my family lives, I listened to a lot of podcast episodes and books on tape because I wanted to continue to grow myself and prepare myself for future episodes on Empowered Educator. And I got to thinking about professional development. Surprise, surprise. You know that's a passion of mine. And I was thinking back to a school where I was doing some consulting work recently. And I did observations before we actually did any professional development with the teachers. And what I noticed was the teachers were working themselves to death. They were doing all of the thinking. Of course, they've done all the prep work. Now they're doing the presenting and teaching, and they're doing all the thinking. Then they have to do all the grading. And it was amazing that they are even able to come to work, because I am sure that they are exhausted at the end of the day because they are doing all the heavy lifting. And I am not casting blame on them at all. I think that is the perception that most teachers have, that I have to teach my heart out when I'm in the classroom. And it's really hard for them to think about flipping that script and thinking in a way that makes them a facilitator of learning rather than a teacher of material. But I also realized that they're probably not getting the professional development that they need. And I was totally prepared to go in and do professional development with them based on backward planning, data collection and analysis, and assessment alignment. And what I realized is I needed to give them some professional development on student engagement and how to really make the students do the heavy lifting rather than them doing the heavy lifting. But I also know that I can't just present this professional development to them one time and that be it. They're not going to sit in a 1 to 2 hour PD session. And it wasn't a sit and get session. They were engaged and doing hands-on learning as soon as they walked in. I had them doing a do now when they walked in while we were waiting on everyone to get there. And I had them doing work and being engaged the entire time. I wanted to do the things that I was wanting them to do with their students. I wanted them to see it in action. But I also know that this is not going to carry over into their classroom just by doing it one time because I was presenting a lot of information. And I hate doing it this way because bite-sized is best, but I also knew I only had 2 hours and I might not be able to present this to them again or follow up with them. But there also has to be some accountability for at least attempting to apply what they were learning with me that day. So I was thinking about standards-based. When I present backward planning, it is based on the standards, and lessons are based on the standards. Assessments are based on the standards. Everything is an alignment. And I was thinking about standards-based learning for students, and I was thinking, why can't we apply that to what we do with our teachers for professional development so they know exactly what is expected of them? Why should we invest our time and our energy into creating standards-based professional development? Well, there's a few reasons. First, it aligns the teacher growth with student success. When PD is built around clear standards, like the Missouri teacher standards, you ensure that teachers are growing in ways that directly impact their students. In Missouri, our Missouri teacher standards are closely aligned with the frameworks and research of Marzano, Hattie, and Lamov, as they focus on high-impact teaching practices, teacher effectiveness, and student achievement. Our State Department of Education took pieces of the research of each of those geniuses in education and created our Missouri teacher standards using their research. A second reason for standards-based PD is because it moves the needle on engagement. That was where this school was really suffering, was student engagement. If students are checked out, they're not learning. And we know that teachers feel more invested when PD is relevant to their daily work. I told the teachers that they were doing all the heavy lifting. They knew that. They knew from the feedback that I gave them that they were doing all the work and that some of their students were checked out and that engagement was a problem. And standards-based PD ties learning directly to classroom practices, making it practical and actionable. And it bridges the gap between theory and practice. By integrating the strategies from the frameworks like Teach Like a Champion, which is Doug Lamov, and things like building thinking classrooms, you take those big ideas and then you turn them into tangible tools for teachers to use immediately. What I did in that professional development session, those teachers were able to take back and use the very next day. A standards-based professional development framework for your school gives your teachers the tools to grow. And when teachers grow and learn, students grow and learn and are successful. All right, so now we know the why, and let's move on to the what. What does a good standards-based professional development program look like? Well, first, there's clear alignment. So start with your state's teacher standards. Now, Missouri has those laid out. I don't know about all states, but I know we do. But there has to be some kind of framework, I'm sure, for your state. So you may have to do a little digging. For example, MTS, or Missouri Teacher Standard number 4, focuses on instructional practices, which is the heart of student learning. So we have to think about the instructional practices of our teachers, and we have to meet our teachers where they are to help fix any issues that they might have in their instruction. MTS Standard 5 is all about assessment. So your PD might focus on how those teachers that really need help in that area can use exit tickets to drive instructional decisions. I know from observing in those classrooms that their exit tickets are not on point. But at that moment, my biggest bang for my buck working with them was on student engagement. Going back and aligning the assessments, formative and summative, will have to be something that I do at a later date with them. And you need to have some high leverage frameworks. Combine things like Get Better Faster for coaching cycles with Teach Like a Champion for engagement strategies, and then building thinking classrooms for fostering that independence in your students. I want you to imagine the way that I presented this professional development. When they first walked in, they had a do now, which was on the board. It wasn't anything hard, but it got them thinking and it opened them up to being reflective about their own practices. I taught them other Teach Like a Champion strategies, which they used and they presented to each other. And I also taught them Kagan strategies. And I was able to build in some classroom management strategies for those teachers who really needed that as well. This was not me teaching this to them as part of the professional development. It was me using that strategy with them in different ways. For example, when I needed to get their attention, I did a call and response, and I just did it with them so they practiced it and then they could take it back to their classroom. I didn't teach it to them. I just did it with them. We used whiteboards. So every teacher in my session had to answer questions and everybody was engaged. And there wasn't just one or two people carrying the load of the conversation. And the last thing that makes standards-based PD effective is that it's ongoing and iterative. Great PD isn't one and done. We know that. You have to embed it. You have to follow up with coaching cycles to reinforce what teachers are learning. And you can only do that if you are in classrooms and you see what's happening and you are giving positive and corrective feedback every time that you're in there in that capacity. And again, that is not once a quarter. That is weekly. Finally, let's talk about how to create standards-based PD. How do you actually build this kind of professional development? This is just an example of how to do it. You can do it any way that works best for your context, your building, your district. First, set the annual focus. Choose a theme like elevating instruction to build thinking classrooms, and then break it into quarterly modules. Quarter 1 could be classroom culture and management. Quarter 2 could be instructional strategies. Quarter 3 might be data-driven decision-making, and then Quarter 4 might be reflective growth. Then structure each session. Start with the standards. So you're going to start with the end in mind. We know that. We do that when we're backward planning our lessons for our students. So begin with your teacher standards that you're addressing and incorporate strategies into that. Demonstrate techniques from Teach Like a Champion or Building Thinking Classrooms or Get Better Faster model. And then practice with your teachers. Role play with the teachers and provide immediate coaching, which is a hallmark of the Get Better Faster model. And after the session, follow up with classroom observations and one-on-one coaching to help teachers refine their practice. And you're going to have some teachers who get it immediately. They're able to implement it immediately. And then you're going to go back next week and you're going to look for the same thing to make sure that there's carryover. But you also know that you have teachers, especially new teachers sometimes, they have a little trouble with it and they need a little bit more practice. And then you're going to need to measure that success. Use the teacher feedback, classroom observations, and student data to assess the impact of your professional development. When you integrate all of these elements, you're not just offering PD, you're creating a growth culture in your school. And if everyone is participating, including district leadership, in growing themselves, then it doesn't feel punitive. It doesn't feel like anyone is being singled out or called out. It feels like everyone's growing. That's what we do here. We all grow. Students grow, teachers grow, leadership grows. All right, empowered educators, we've covered a lot today. The why, the what, and the how of standards-based professional development. So here's your action step. Take one idea from today's episode and start planning your next PD session. Maybe it's using the teaching standards in your state to guide your focus, or maybe it's bringing in Teach Like a Champion techniques to elevate engagement. Whatever it is, make it practical, teacher-centered, and aligned with your vision for excellence. And remember, great leaders don't just create workshops, they create opportunities for transformation. If you love this episode, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, leave a review, and share it with another educator who's ready to make an impact. Until next time, keep empowering yourself and others to lead with purpose. You've got this, guys.